Exposed, Janitor's daughter reveals dangerous secret to CEO. What happens next is incredible. Emma Thompson stood amidst a symphony of sounds and smells in the local high school gym, a place where hopes soared like the students who filled it. Every corner held memories of triumphs and losses, the very air buzzing with potential. Yet tonight, it felt suffocating. Every breath reminded her of the unseen weight she had discovered, her father's secrets hidden among cleaning supplies. She tugged at the frayed sleeve of her jacket, her stomach a tight knot as the documents lay heavy in her pocket, their implications swirling ominously in her mind. The paper crinkled under her trembling fingers, each line revealing more of Mr. Jacobson's ruthlessness. As CEO of the nearby manufacturing company, he had built his empire on the backs of families like hers, draining the life from their community. "They don't care, none of them care," she whispered, the words flowing like a river of despair. She thought of her friends suffering from respiratory illnesses, of the community she loved, and the invisible cloud of pollution that hung over them. But could she step out of the shadows and confront the man destroying it all? Burdened with the consequences of her father's hard work, she bore the weight of a fierce loyalty. Serving the community through cleaning wasn't just a job for her dad, it represented decades of commitment. If she exposed Jacobson, would it endanger her father's job? Disrupt their fragile stability? Racing thoughts tangled in her mind like a jumbled mess of emotions. The night air outside felt colder as her resolve wavered and doubt crept in. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With a shuddering breath, she prepared for the meeting. Laying out the collected testimonies felt both empowering and terrifying. Each story she gathered reflected pain, yet it ignited flames of determination within her. What right did she have to speak against this corporate giant? The strong family values instilled in her flickered in the background, whispering messages about the importance of integrity. What if she didn't voice the concerns of her community? What if it all fell silent, buried under the weight of fear? She couldn't shake the urgency. She owed it to everyone she loved, didn't she? As she approached the towering structure of Jacobson's office, dread wrapped around her like a cold fog. Inside, sleek furniture and sly smiles awaited, symbols of wealth that antagonized her senses. Her heart thudded loudly, pounding against her ribs as she stepped into the lioness den. The CEO's sneering confidence could crush anyone in a heartbeat, she thought. Would her voice even matter here? Seated across from him, the tension felt palpable, electric. The moment she opened her mouth, everything could change, revelations lurking just beneath the surface like a storm ready to unleash fury. Would she unleash truths that could dismantle a corporation? Or would emotion betray her, leaving her voice trembling in vain? Everything hung in the balance: her family's honor, the safety of their community, and a burgeoning realization that maybe, just maybe, her voice mattered. As the ominous air thickened with unspoken truths, the walls of her resolve began to shake, on the brink of unraveling, all the while leaving one haunting question: could she muster the courage to reclaim justice before she was silenced forever? Emma's breath caught in her throat, the weight of the moment unfurling before her like an unfathomable abyss. The plush office, awash in muted tones and unsettling luxury, failed to distract her from the enormity of the confrontation that loomed. Every nerve pulsed with anxiety as she chose her words carefully, piecing together the lives and heartaches she had come to represent. "Mr. Jacobson," she began, her voice uneven. She felt like a child summoning the courage to approach a looming giant. "I have some concerns about your factories, about the impact on our community." The mere mention of his name felt like a challenge, igniting a small flame of courage within her. Yet, doubt twisted alongside determination. Was she really capable of holding a powerful man accountable? Jacobson's eyes narrowed, curiosity cloaked in mockery. Concerns? From a janitor's daughter? A subtle sneer played at his lips, an expression destined to belittle her very existence. Behind his polished facade, she could sense the tight grip of arrogance, a striking contrast to the frail student struggling to breathe in the shadow of his enterprise. Emma clenched her fist, the crumpled papers within her pocket brushing against her skin, a desperate reminder of her purpose. Did he truly believe the strength of her family's fate could be diminished by mere lineage? Sometimes, the person cleaning your office knows more than you think, she countered, surprising herself with the assertiveness behind her words. Hesitation flickered momentarily in Jacobson's expression, and Emma seized the chance, diving deeper into her carefully constructed arguments. She laid out the testimonies, accounts of illness, family struggles, shattered lives. Each story represented years of suffering caused by negligence disguised as corporate progress. As the words poured forth, she felt the swell of her resolve fortify. With every tale told, with every struggle revealed, Emma recognized her growing power, a realization as intoxicating as it was terrifying. This wasn't merely about her family or her father's job, it was about reclaiming her own identity and her place in a community that had been stifled for too long. Jacobson's demeanor shifted, though the backlash surged in waves. You're out of your depth. This isn't a school project, young lady. You need to understand who you're dealing with. The tone was cold, steady, yet subtly threatened. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the unyielding resolve beating in her chest. I understand exactly who I'm dealing with. It's time to face the consequences of your actions. His laugh sliced through the air, a sharp, derisive sound. Consequences? For me? Yes, she asserted, though doubt began to flutter at the edges of her mind again. Thoughts of her father, of loyalty and fear, loomed heavily. Could one young woman truly challenge the corporate structure that oppressed her community? The siren of tempestuous doubt screamed in her brain, but Emma stood her ground. This isn't just about you anymore, Mr. Jacobson. It's about everyone you've ignored for years. A tense silence stretched between them, thickening until it was almost tangible. He would retaliate. She was certain of that. What unseemly tactics would he employ to silence her? As the corners of his mouth twitched, she prepared herself for whatever might come next. Just then, the door swung open, and an unexpected ally walked in, a journalist from a local paper she had spoken to weeks prior, his presence a wild card that could shift the balance in her favor. The sudden surge of possibility coursed through her. This confrontation was only the beginning. Would her words break through the corporate facades and ignite change? With renewed determination sparking in her veins, Emma met Jacobson's gaze more challenging than ever. The story was far from over, and she was ready for the next move. But was Jacobson prepared for hers? Emma's heart raced as she felt the intensity of the moment escalate. The journalist, Mark, stepped forward, his presence an anchor amid the chaos that swirled in the room. She caught a flicker of excitement in his expression, perhaps sensing the gravity of the encounter and the stakes involved. The air was electric with potential as he positioned himself near her, blending professional curiosity with a palpable sense of urgency. Mr. Jacobson, Mark began, his voice steady and authoritative, I believe your factories have grave repercussions on the local populace. Are you prepared to address these allegations? Emma's confidence surged as though ignited by the certainty in Mark's tone. Together, they were a force, an unexpected coalition challenging a titan. She observed Jacobson's reaction, his brows drawing together, the mockery now replaced by irritation. The shift was subtle yet significant. Interesting choice of words, Mr. Journalist, Jacobson replied, masking his irritation with a thin veneer of civility. Let us not forget the context here, facts and statistics stand on their own, not wild claims from disgruntled former workers. Those words stung. Disgruntled. Beneath that term lay the experiences she had tried to voice, years of hardship, repression that could not be quantitated by simple numbers. She longed to refute him, to express that these weren't merely statistics but human lives, including her father's, that hung in the balance. Of course, you would say that, Emma interjected, her voice gathering strength. Those are the people you've silenced for far too long. These aren't claims. They're testimonies of people you've discarded. And there it was, her authentic self rising, her voice steady and unyielding. She could feel it. This was not just a confrontation about the factories, but also a confrontation with her own self-doubt. Emma reveled in this moment of clarity, experiencing a burgeoning strength she didn't know she had. She realized she didn't need to be shrill or aggressive. Her passion alone could inspire action, could resonate with others willing to listen. Jacobson's eyes flickered with something akin to panic as Mark pressed on. What do you have to say about the reports of negligence? The studies suggest that your emissions have contributed to a public health crisis. The CEO's facade cracked slightly, a flash of anger marred his otherwise polished demeanor. Those studies are flawed, funded by those with an agenda to disrupt progress, he retorted, but the steel in his voice faltered. Emma saw the rage simmering beneath, the desperation to control the narrative. She pondered her next move carefully. Would you like to hear from the actual individuals who have suffered? I'm sure they have a different narrative than your flawed studies. I can connect you to them. With each conviction-laden word, she felt her authority solidifying. She was not merely a witness, she was a participant in her own story, weaving connections to a greater narrative. The room fell silent, tension coiling in the air around Jacobson. Would he lash out further or attempt damage control? The clock was ticking, and she sensed that the momentum had shifted irrevocably. Emma was aware of the potential risks. Her father's job was on the line, and Jacobson would not take kindly to his authority being challenged, but as Emma stared into Jacobson's eyes, she understood that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Each word she uttered, each breath she took became a statement of defiance, not just against Jacobson but against a life defined by fear and limitation. Many people can speak the truth, Mr. Jacobson, she continued, her voice low but steady, and I intend to ensure that they will. In that moment, everything felt poised at the precipice of change. She was ready to witness the face of resistance transform, to see whether Jacobson would crumble under scrutiny or rise to defend his empire. Unbeknownst to her, this was just the beginning. With a clear determination fueling her resolve, Emma prepared for whatever might lie ahead, and she sensed that her greatest challenge was not yet revealed. Would Jacobson respond with calculated backlash, or would he reveal vulnerabilities no one had anticipated? The stakes were rising, and Emma held her breath, poised for the next unfolding chapter. Emma's resolve remained unwavering as the charged silence settled around her like a thick mist. Jacobson's eyes narrowed, and she could almost hear the gears in his mind turning, weighing his options. The moment stretched, reality teetering on the edge of a knife. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, reinforcing the precarious balance of power. Would the tide turn in her favor, or would she face the full brunt of his wrath? What exactly do you think you're doing, young lady? He finally sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. You really believe you can sway the narrative in this manner? His disbelief stung her, yet it fueled a fire she didn't know existed. I'm simply presenting the other side of the story, one you have actively chosen to silence. The words slipped out confidently, unexpected in their strength. She didn't just want to address the issue, she needed to confront the manipulation that had traded lives for profit. Mark's validation stood beside her as he shifted slightly, his presence now a more formidable barrier. Power thrives on fear, Mr. Jacobson, and your investment in control is becoming transparent. With that, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Jacobson's face, a momentary fracture in his defense. Emma seized it, aware that her own fears were morphing into a driving force. This confrontation was no longer just about exposing Jacobson, it was about uncovering her true self, a version that thrived on courage and the unwavering desire for justice. Do you even care? She challenged, looking directly into the heart of that steely facade. About the people who risk their health so your empire can succeed? They don't have the luxury of ignoring the fallout. Jacobson feigned indifference, but the slight tightening of his jaw told her he felt the pressure. What had once been mere lobbying for reform had transformed into an undeniable dialogue, and Emma found her voice resonating louder than ever. She felt the growing sense of duty towards those who had suffered in silence. it was time she raised theirs, too. In the back of her mind, she realized this was a moment of personal discovery, the threshold between her past and the woman she aspired to be. Each challenge was revealing uncharted territories of her potential. Gone was the timid girl who averted her gaze in the presence of authority. Instead, she stood here, fully aware that she could shift the course of conversation, challenge the status quo, propelling her motivations forward. What do you have to say to them if I bring them here? When they share how your negligence has changed their lives? The confidence in her question startled her. She was prepared to act. Jacobson's eyes sparked with fury, but beneath the surface, she noticed a clear hint of hesitance. Her dare, unwittingly forged from the fires of personal trauma, had placed him in a vulnerable position. She could sense the fabric of his empire beginning to fray, a long-awaited reckoning initiated by her words. That he cleared his throat and straightened his posture, attempting to reclaim his throne amidst the growing tension in the room. You think this is wise? You risk more than you know. Emma could feel a veil of chilling dread creeping in, but it would not sway her approach. What is wise about allowing your empire to thrive on the suffering of others? She challenged, breathing deeply to maintain her poise. The room crackled with unspoken tension, a silent audience to their conflict. Emma's gaze never wavered. She realized she had stepped into the arena, not just as a spectator of injustice, but as a gladiator ready to fight back. Her mind raced. This was no longer a dialogue, it was a battle, one that required her to adapt, strategize, and confront the very person who had inadvertently fueled her resolve. But as she prepared for Jacobson's next calculated strike, she couldn't shake the looming question: could she truly dismantle his empire, or was she courting a storm that might engulf her entire world? Her heart thumped loudly against her ribs as she braced herself. She was now fully immersed in this fight, yet uncertain of the consequences that lay ahead. Would she emerge victorious, or discover what darkness lurked in the shadows of Jacobson's empire? The next move was crucial, and Emma was ready to make it. Emma felt the weight of Jacobson's scrutinizing gaze, the palpable tension charging the air between them. Every second that lingered was a moment of clarity for her. She was no longer the girl hidden in the shadows, but a force dedicated to uncovering truths that too many were afraid to confront. As Jacobson's expression darkened, she mulled over the implications of her bold words. Did she truly have the power to expose him? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Steeling herself against the rising tide of doubt, she conjured the images of those suffering at the hands of the powerful. Their stories lit a fire within her, illuminating the path ahead. Bring them, Jacobson taunted, a cold dismissal in his voice. Let them speak. I'd like to see you manage their stories. You have no idea what you're asking for. The challenge ignited a surge of determination within her. I have every idea, she countered. This isn't about theatrics. It's about accountability. Her heart raced as she recognized the gravity of her boldness. Every word could alienate allies, draw fire from enemies. But failing to act felt worse. The thought of silence gnawed at her insides. As she locked eyes with Jacobson, she could feel an unfamiliar resolve solidifying within her. Emma took a deep breath, shifting from fear to calculated boldness. When his expression hardened, she felt the familiar pang of anxiety but grounded herself in her conviction. She sought clarity. I need to gather their testimonies. Whether it's in a public forum or a private meeting, they deserve to be heard. Jacobson shifted, his skepticism palpable. They'll be nothing but pawns in this feel-good play of yours, he retorted, attempting to belittle her intent. You think you're doing them a favor? You have no experience in dealing with people at this level. Her mind raced as his words sunk in, irritation flaring within her. Was he right? She chastised herself for even allowing doubt to encroach on her determination. Every obstacle she had faced until now had only intensified her resolve. She feared no one and nothing, the stakes felt too high, and this was about more than just her. It was about igniting a movement based on truth. Still, the prospect of failure loomed, a specter hovering just out of reach. The internal conflict pulsed beneath her skin. Could her lack of experience threaten this fragile momentum? But the growing chorus of voices seeking justice strengthened her. She had nurtured a faith that their suffering would galvanize change. No experience. Maybe not, she admitted, meeting his gaze evenly. But I have something your empire lacks: integrity. And I'm not afraid to expose your lies. Time felt suspended as he absorbed her words, a crack forming in the veneer of confidence he'd been radiating. The silence grew heavy, the palpable divide between them felt like a tightrope strung above a chasm. One false move, and the consequences could be dire. Jacobson let out a low, guttural laugh, tinged with barely contained rage. You have no idea what you're playing at, Emma. Once you step onto this path, there's no turning back. She leaned into his challenge, recognizing the thrill of stepping into the unknown. Each moment she faced him was a moment of growth. Then let us dance, she replied, an edge of defiance slicing through her words. With a competitive fire sparking in her veins, she realized just how far she had come. Each rebuttal, every fear she conquered, unraveled layers of her potential. She was no longer seeking to prove herself, she was standing in her power. Jacobson turned, dismissing her as he paced away, and Emma couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. The theater was set, but the next act hinged on her courage to rally those warriors who had endured the same struggles. With her heart pounding, she knew it was only the beginning. Gathering testimonies wasn't simply an act, it was a strategic move towards unearthing the depths of Jacobson's empire. But as she planned her next steps, a chilling thought settled on her: what if the truths they uncovered were darker than she could ever imagine? The stakes had never been higher, and with every action she took, Emma felt the ground beneath her shift. The moment of truth was approaching, and with it came a tempest that could threaten everything she had just begun to build. What lay ahead could either dismantle or empower her growing legacy. Emma woke early the next morning, the sunlight filtering through her window casting stripes across her quilt. The glow felt foreign, almost ironic considering the shadows she was trying to expose. Her determination to gather testimonies echoed in her mind, underscored by a sense of urgency that made her pulse quicken. Jacobson's taunts had cut deep, igniting a fire within her that propelled her to action. The first step felt monumental. Emma grabbed a notepad and started outlining her strategy. She knew she needed to approach this carefully. The stories she sought were laced with pain and reluctance, and persuading the victims to speak up would require more than just courage. It needed empathy, a genuine understanding of their struggles. Would they trust her? Uncertainties clouded her thoughts, but she pushed them aside. As she scribbled names and potential contacts, Emma felt an unfamiliar exhilaration. Emerging from the shadows meant immersing herself in the very pain she was trying to alleviate. The gravity of her mission shifted her perspective. This was not simply about exposing Jacobson, it was about amplifying the voices of those who had been silenced. She began crafting her approach, envisioning the conversations that lay ahead. Dialing numbers felt daunting, but she had rehearsed her intent: to listen, to bear witness, to validate. The first call landed with a shaky breath. As the phone rang, Emma mentally rehearsed her opening line, reminding herself of the gravity of the conversation she was about to initiate. When a woman's voice finally answered, it trembled slightly, a reflection of the fear and hesitance Emma could almost feel. "Hello, is this Miss Harris?" Emma asked, keeping her tone measured and compassionate. "Yes, this is she," the voice responded warily. In that instant, everything felt surreal. This was a real person, a person whose life had likely been touched by Jacobson's ruthless reign. "I'm Emma. I work on stories about individuals who have been affected by corporate injustice," she introduced carefully. "I want to listen to your experience. If you're willing, I believe your voice deserves to be heard." The silence that followed felt heavy, profound. Emma held her breath, feeling each second pull taut with uncertainty. Could Ms. Harris offer her the insights she needed? Would she even agree to talk? Finally, the woman's voice broke through the silence, hesitant yet strong. "Why should I trust you?" Emma felt the weight of her question. In that moment, she understood how fragile trust was, a commodity she would need to earn. "I can't ask you to trust me blindly," she replied. "But I promise to honor your story and respect your journey." I have no agenda beyond shedding light on the truth. I need time to think about it, Ms. Harris said, and Emma could almost hear the walls building back up. Of course, Emma responded, fighting the pang of disappointment. You can reach me anytime you're ready. Hanging up, she felt a mixture of defeat and resolve. It was a small step, but every journey began with one. Each interaction would be a test of her character, a reflection of her ability to navigate not just conversations but the fragility of human experiences. Emma's day was filled with similar calls, and while many ended without the desired results, she felt stronger with every effort. No matter how many times she had to face rejection or hesitation, each word exchanged added layers to her growing confidence. She learned to adapt, adjust her tone, and empathize deeply without judgment, a skill she was beginning to master, yet beneath her burgeoning confidence lay a nagging fear: what would happen if someone chose to speak out against Jacobson? Would they be met with resistance, threats, or something far worse? As stories began to surface in her mind, Emma understood that she was stepping into dangerous territory, one where the stakes were high, and consequences could bleed into her personal life as well. As she prepared for her next call, a sense of clarity emerged. This was not merely about gathering testimonies, it was about awakening the strength within those who had lost their voices. They needed to reclaim their power, and somehow, she was determined to help facilitate that. In that resolve, though, came an unsettling truth: she was not just defending vulnerable narratives, she was also entangling herself in a network of potential retaliation. Jacobson would undoubtedly notice the tremors of discontent rippling through his fortress of control. What repercussions were waiting just beyond the horizon? The sound of her phone vibrating jolted Emma out of her thoughts. She glanced down. It was a message from an unknown number. As she opened it, a deep chill crept over her. Stop digging into what you can't handle. Her heart raced. This was just the beginning, and already the shadows were growing darker. Emma took a deep breath, recognizing that the moment of truth was fast approaching, not just for those whose stories she sought, but for herself as well. She was crossing the threshold into a world where the fight for truth would test everything she had become, and she was about to find out just how powerful her resolve truly was. Emma stared at her phone, the message from the unknown number burning in her mind like a threat etched into her consciousness. Tension twisted in her stomach, a visceral reminder of the gravity that now accompanied her quest. She leaned back in her chair, attempting to steady her racing heart while grappling with the implied danger encircling her. The days ahead loomed like a fog, thick and impenetrable. She grasped her notepad tightly, its pages filled with names and contacts who were once strangers, now potential allies in her pursuit of truth. Each individual's pain was waiting to be folded into a narrative that could spark change if only she could reach them before fear silenced their voices forever. Emma wanted to believe this was a journey of empowerment, not just for the victims but for herself as well. How much strength would she need to draw from within? The resolve to reveal Jacobson's injustices flickered like a candle in the wind. Each time she dialed a new number, she faced an internal battle, whether to be a mere journalist or an advocate, a voice within a storm. Driving back from her office, she thought about her next call. Mrs. Turner had been a long-time employee at Jacobson Enterprises, her loyalty unwavering over decades. Emma already felt a surge of empathy for a woman facing the turmoil of potentially exposing the corporation that once provided her livelihood. As she pulled into her driveway, determination swept over her, propelling her toward action. Before she could second-guess herself, Emma grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she composed a message to Mrs. Turner. Hi, Mrs. Turner. It's Emma from the investigative team. I know this may be difficult, but I'd love to discuss your experiences at Jacobson Enterprises when you have a moment. And with that, she pressed send. Days moved slowly, and Emma felt herself trapped in a psychological limbo. The threat loomed larger with each passing hour, but she recognized that doubt could not dictate her path. Each call and each unanswered message fed her hunger for the truth, but the fear of the consequences weighed heavily upon her. The reply came late the next evening, and it sent a ripple of emotion through her. It read simply, "Can we meet in person?" Emma's pulse quickened. This was a significant shift. Mrs. Turner was stepping out of the shadows. Yes, she typed back, hoping her voice didn't betray her excitement. How about we meet at the cafe on Maple Street tomorrow at 10 a.m.? With the arrangement made, anticipation curdled into anxiety. She prepared all night, contemplating the conversation that waited for her. Would Mrs. Turner feel safe enough to share her story? Would she bear the burden of truth on her shoulders? At the cafe, the scent of brewed coffee mingled with the crisp morning air. Emma arrived early, her heart pounding in her chest as she sipped her drink, scanning the door for any sign of the older woman. When Mrs. Turner walked in, Emma noticed her hesitance mixed with determination, a mirror of her own doubts. As they settled into a quiet corner, Emma felt her instincts kick in. She focused on creating a comfortable atmosphere, subtly steering the conversation toward familiarity, weaving anecdotes of her experiences into the exchange, each moment aimed at dismantling walls. "Thank you for meeting me today, Mrs. Turner," she started softly. "Your experiences are really important to me." Mrs. Turner's eyes, though veiled with anxiety, flickered to life. "I'm nervous, but I have things to say," she stated, a tremor barely hidden in her voice. The moment felt electric, alive with possibility, yet Emma was acutely aware of the potential fallout. What if Jacobson found out? What if this led to consequences for Mrs. Turner? Fired, bullied, or worse? Each response, each shared secret felt like it carried a weight far greater than either of them could grasp at that moment. Emma's heart raced as she leaned in closer, committed now as a vessel for the truth that was about to be unleashed, but as the conversation deepened, shifting into areas of deep-seated fears and past injustices, the cafe door swung open, sending a chill through Emma as a familiar figure stepped inside. The thrill of their conversation transformed into a palpable, swirling anxiety as a former colleague of Jacobson entered with authority, scanning the patrons like a hawk in search of prey. Emma's instinct screamed danger, prompting her to grapple with an undeniable reality. How far was she willing to go to expose the shadows? The stakes were rising, and the next move could change everything for both her and Mrs. Turner. Emma closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, realizing the path ahead was no longer solely about discovery. She was igniting a fire that could consume them both. Already, she was in too deep, and there was no turning back. Was she prepared for the battle that lay ahead? With the tension thickening the air between them and the storm clouds gathering outside, the time had come to face the lurking repercussions of their truth-seeking ambitions. Emma's breath caught in her throat as the figure from Jacobson Enterprises moved closer, scanning the cafe with an intensity that sent ripples of dread through her. It wasn't just any former colleague, it was Frank, an aggressive manager known for his ruthless demeanor. Most employees whispered about him in fearful tones, and now he was here, embodiment of the very corporate menace she sought to confront. Mrs. Turner's expression mirrored Emma's unease, her eyes darting towards the door as if weighing the options of retreat. Emma sensed the urgency blended with a newfound resolve was compelling her toward action. She knew she had to act decisively, not just for herself but for the woman sitting across from her, a woman who had dedicated years to a company that now fostered fear. "Mrs. Turner, we might need to change locations," Emma whispered, trying to keep her voice steady, but the tremors betrayed her. "Can you do this another time? I think it might be too dangerous." The older woman shook her head, her determination solidifying. "No, Emma. This needs to happen now. We've been too quiet for too long." Emma admired that fierce resilience even as dread engulfed her. Turning her gaze back to Frank, she scrutinized his confident strides as he approached the cafe counter, oblivious to the turmoil he triggered. What if he saw her? What if Jacobson were aware of her meeting with Mrs. Turner? "Okay," Emma nodded reluctantly, "let us keep talking, but keep your voice down." As they resumed, Mrs. Turner shared her story in a low voice, the undertones carrying a weight that resonated with Emma's heart. The betrayal Mrs. Turner felt from the company she had dedicated her life to was palpable, each word charged with emotion. Emma listened intently, her notepad filled with scribbles capturing the essence of Mrs. Turner's experiences that were marred by harassment, systemic injustice, and the betrayal of trust. Yet, as Mrs. Turner uncovered more of her experiences, Emma's focus kept shuttling between the heart of the narrative and the looming figure of Frank. Every laugh she and Mrs. Turner shared felt like a distant echo from another world. There was a hard truth being born in that corner booth, a shared surrender to the reality of their situation. With every passing minute, Emma's anxiety twisted into adrenaline. She realized the gravity of what they were discussing. This could be the defining moment in her career, not just as a journalist but as a catalyst for change. "Mrs. Turner, we need to document this," Emma asserted, her voice now gaining strength. "Stories like yours need to be heard, and it might just rattle the cage enough to get people talking." Mrs. Turner's gaze flickered with recognition. She could see it too. The fire ignited within Emma urged her forward. "Let us do it. Together. I may have the platform, but your voice will carry the truth." Just as determination radiated between them, Frank turned sharply, spotting Emma with an expression frozen with recognition. Emma felt her heart sink. The moment of discovery loomed large. "Emma," Frank's voice rolled like thunder, low and dangerously calm. "I didn't expect to find you here. You might want to watch who you associate with." Fear wrapped around Emma like a vice, every instinct screamed to flee, yet a defiance surged within. This confrontation would define the course she and Mrs. Turner would take. "Look, Frank," she uttered, her throat dry and her hands clammy, "this conversation is about the truth, something you wouldn't understand." As his narrowed eyes glinted with challenge, Emma realized the stakes had skyrocketed. The balance of power was shifting and the looming threat against their pursuit of truth felt more tangible than ever. Emma's inner turmoil collided with her newfound resolve. She had to decide whether to retreat under Frank's watchful gaze or stand her ground and confront not just him, but the entire structure that had perpetuated the very injustices they were uncovering. With the storm of consequences swirling and time running out, Emma locked eyes with Mrs. Turner. They were at a crossroads, and each woman had to choose the weight of their truth. And as Frank's smirk toyed with the edges of danger, Emma's heart raced for the confrontation she knew was inevitable. This was only the beginning, and she was about to dive deeper into the fire she had kindled. What choices would they make in the face of such confrontation? Would they continue their quest together, or would fear pull them apart? The silence in the cafe felt like an impending storm, each drop of rain a heartbeat echoing through Emma's mind. Weakness whispered for her to glance away, to abandon this fight altogether, but a stronger voice urged her to stay rooted. Frank's smug demeanor only intensified the charge in the air, and she could feel the weight of Mrs. Turner's gaze on her, an encouragement as fierce as it was needed. "Truth? Spare me," Frank responded, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think you can shake things up because you've got some old lady spouting nonsense? You really need to check your sources." Emma swallowed the retort that burned on her tongue, feeling the suffocating pressure of Frank's scrutiny. Was she about to let him derail what could be an important moment in her life and Mrs. Turner's? Suddenly, it wasn't just about the story, it was about the very essence of her own integrity. This was not just a confrontation with Frank, it was a confrontation with her fear. "Mrs. Turner," Emma said, her voice steadying, "we both know your story is valid. It's time to unmask the manipulation and deceit that led to your suffering. Don't let him diminish that." Frank leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can create chaos in a world built on order? It's people like you that mess things up for the rest of us." "Maybe chaos is exactly what's needed," Emma shot back, surprising even herself with the conviction behind her words. As she sensed Mrs. Turner's approval in her expression, an unusual fire kindled inside her. This was more than journalism, it was an assertion of power against a system designed to silence. "Why are you scared, Frank? Is it because you know the truth will come out, and you'll be the one standing in the spotlight?" She took a breath, readying herself for the next part of their exchange. "You don't know what you're playing with, Emma," he hissed, a threat lacing his words. "I want to let you ruin everything I've worked for." His controlling aura faltered slightly, revealing a flicker of vulnerability beneath his bravado. This was the crack in his armor she needed to exploit. "What have you worked for, Frank?" An empire built on fear and intimidation. People deserve to see the foundation you've laid for yourself, one constructed from manipulation and deceit. The tension around their table shifted palpably. She felt Mrs. Turner leaning closer, her resolve merging seamlessly with Emma's newfound determination. Revisiting her notes and the realities of countless others, Emma could feel purpose reverberating within her. We all deserve accountability, she continued, feeling the urgency pressing her forward. Your days of hiding behind that corporate mask are numbered. Today marks a turning point, not just for you but for everyone who has gone silent. Mrs. Turner's story will be told, and it'll open the floodgates for every other hidden truth. Frank's mouth twisted into a hard line, the color draining from his face as he regained his composure. You think this is a game? I will destroy you. The threat was crude but visceral, igniting a familiar fear that clawed at Emma's insides. Yet an equally profound sense of bravery stirred within her. Who had he ever been but a tyrant? And she had no intention of becoming another victim of his tactics. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she affirmed, standing taller and refusing to yield to his intimidation. I want to let you silence this truth. As the confrontation crackled in the air like live electricity, a knowledge surged through her: she was capable of more than she had ever believed. The seeds of her personal growth, buried under layers of self-doubt and insecurity, had finally begun to flower. The stakes were rising, and she felt prepared to face whatever lay ahead. But how would Frank retaliate? Was this confrontation only the beginning of an escalating war? Emma sensed the eyes of the cafe were upon them, stirring whispers and curiosity, introducing uncertainty into their delicate battle. What would come next, and could Emma maintain her resolve as the true cost of facing Frank became evident? As the atmosphere thickened, the real test of her courage and commitment loomed just out of sight. Emma stood resolutely in the cafe, the air thick with unresolved tension as Frank's threats hung ominously between them. She perceived his bluster as a desperate attempt to maintain control against an exposure that would not only threaten his career but lay bare the entire corrupt foundation under Jacobson Enterprises. The calm facade she had worked to build throughout her life began to bear down under the pressure of this confrontation, yet from somewhere deep within, the embers of her transformation ignited into a steady flame of courage. Everything I am doing may not embark on a smooth path, but it is anchored on truth, a truth you can no longer navigate around, she declared, her voice holding a newfound authority. Frank glared, his expression betraying a flicker of astonishment. For the first time, she realized the power that stemmed from her position as a bearer of the very stories Jacobson's empire had sought to bury. You can't intimidate me anymore, Emma pressed, and the palpable resolve thickened the air surrounding them. The moment she uttered those words, the power dynamic shifted. No longer just the janitor's daughter, Emma had become the voice of the silenced, and with each heartbeat, she felt her confidence fortify. Her resolve to shine a light on injustice had transformed from internal debate into external action, a fierce determination to fight not just for her father but for an entire community oppressed by greed and negligence. Bolstered by Mrs. Turner's unwavering support and the authenticity in their shared mission, Emma's strategy began crystallizing. We will reach out to everyone affected. It's time for them to claim their power, and I'll ensure they are heard, she insisted, envisioning a release of pent-up frustration that had burdened so many families. Good luck with that, kid, Frank retorted, his confidence faltering as he realized the weight of Emma's determination. You won't like what happens when Jacobson finds out. But Emma stood undeterred. Let him try. I am prepared. With that resolve, she felt not only emboldened by her newfound self-worth but also infused with a sense of duty that extended beyond her own fears, a duty to present unfiltered truths and promote genuine change. Several days passed in a flurry of energy as Emma conducted interviews, gathering heartfelt testimonies from brave community members willing to share their stories of loss and suffering. Each conversation reinforced her belief in the power of voices coming together, revealing a tapestry woven with resilience, pain, and an unyielding will to reclaim their lives. Emma's evenings were consumed with writing, crafting the burgeoning series she would release to blast open the gates of accountability. By the time she sent her first article to the local newspaper, Emma felt a surge of satisfaction. She had not only documented the community's suffering but had also taken a decisive step in solidifying the awakening within herself. She was no longer a mere observer, she actively participated in fostering a culture of empowerment. Recognition came almost immediately. Local activists hailed her work as groundbreaking, readers resonated with her authenticity. The articles were met with a mix of gratitude and outrage, drawing attention to Jacobson's actions that had long been classified in hushed tones. Media coverage amplified, and suddenly Emma found herself thrust into the limelight, a determined whistleblower, facing corporate power head-on. In a subsequent town hall meeting, the electricity in the air was palpable, residents gathered to voice their frustrations and experiences publicly. As Emma prepared to present her findings, she felt a powerful shift within. A solid confidence burst forth, no longer tethered by self-doubt. She stepped into the spotlight, articulating the narrative she had gathered with poise and conviction. "This is not merely about my voice," Emma proclaimed, glancing around the room filled with unyielding faces. "This is about justice for everyone who has suffered in silence. I stand here because we all deserve accountability." The room erupted in applause, a symphony of support. What felt like an endless uphill battle now seemed to draw collective strength, and at that moment, Emma fully recognized her own transformation. From a scared girl in the shadows, she had risen to a force disrupting a long-standing order. Emma's growth marked more than personal achievement, it served as a beacon, inspiring others to pursue their own paths of advocacy. She had become a catalyst for change, not just for herself but for countless stories validated within that gym on Maple Street. With her father watching proudly from the crowd, Emma felt a rush of fulfillment as she tucked the memories of their struggles into the depths of her heart. Every risk she had taken came full circle, radiating with purpose. The irony of her initial fear transformed into a resilient spirit strong enough to withstand the harshest storms. The journey was not over, challenges remained, but Emma faced them with an unwavering belief in her capability and the power of her voice. As time moved forward, she was certain of one thing: she had achieved a victory not solely for herself, but for all those who had yet to find their own. Now, it's your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's journey and the powerful message shared. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now and join the movement to foster change through storytelling. Don't wait even one more second to share this empowering narrative.